Welcome back to Society Case Files. My name is Robert, and today I want to talk about live service games. Now, you'll notice that Diablo 4 is going. It's probably why I got thinking about this. I went back to play it for a while, and then I started thinking about a bunch of games like this. Anyway, if you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, I'm going to dive right in. So I had played a whole lot of Dune Awakening, and I just needed a break. And the options were things like Rogue Trader, which is kind of a big commitment when it comes to thinking and what you're going to be doing. I mean, there's a lot of reading and stuff, and I kind of wanted a little bit more of a mindless time. So the season 9 of Diablo 4 had been out for about a month, so we still got about 34 days to play the stuff. And that seemed like a reasonable amount of time to give it a try. Now, there had been a lot of changes to the way it worked since the last time I played, not just in terms of the characters and the builds, but also the way that they presented the battle pass and how your little ashes things work, where you can basically put points in and get bonuses, all the way to, the kinds of powers and stuff you're going to get for the season itself. And that got me thinking about live service in general, because I played a lot of Destiny as well, and Destiny has changed probably the most dramatically of many games, at least that I can think of. If you can think of another game that has changed as much as Destiny, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to take a look at it and see what they did. But if you're not familiar with Destiny 2, it initially came out and had a campaign called the Red War, and it was actually pretty fun. There's some ridiculous aspects of it, but by and large, I thought it was really cool. Well, since then, they have sort of gated it off, and it's just gone. If you bought the game originally, you can't even play the Red War anymore. You just can't do it. And as they've gone along, they've introduced more and more material where basically you're done. FOMO. If you didn't see it the first time, it's gone for good. And so basically what you paid for is no longer there. And in some ways, that's sort of what live service games are about. They're going to continually evolve. They're going to add new content. Old content's going to drop off, that kind of thing. And I have a real mixed opinion about it all around. Because on one hand, it's nice that you're playing this game and they continually refresh it and they give you new things to do. If you really love the core gameplay of whatever it is you're playing, then them changing it in a way that allows you to continue to experience that core while also finding new experiences, that's great. The part that's a little bit iffy is the fact that back in the day, and not even that long ago, let's just say before live service, you bought a game and you had that game. If you wanted to go back through and play the campaign, you just put the disc in and you did it. But now that stuff is just gone. Stuff you've paid for. And I know I've seen a lot of people actually flat out complain about that. They're not happy that they've basically lost the thing that they got the game for in the first place. Now, I'm not going to call out things like balancing and patch notes or whatever else. The stuff they do to fix problems, I can't really complain too much about that. In the case of Diablo 4, it's very strange in one sense that, you could be playing your favorite character. Say you just love the sorcerer. Well, one season the sorcerer might be great. The next it might actually have been nerfed so badly that you can't really continue on. In some ways, I think that's okay, because kicking someone out of their comfort zone is good once in a while, especially if a game like Diablo 4 can get pretty monotonous after a certain point. You're just running pits or whatever you're just running, because at some point you're just doing something over and over, grinding to find whatever it is, chasing some piece of gear or some currency or whatever, just to give you a little bit more power to go to the next stage of whatever you're trying to do. So I can see why they basically make it to where they sort of shift the meta around. So maybe next time you won't be playing a Hydra sorcerer. Maybe next time you won't be doing the Twisted Blades build with a rogue. They're going to try and change it up. I don't necessarily know they do it on purpose. They just, in their effort to balance things and effectively change things, they end up inadvertently making it harder for one class to do better than the next. So, for example, in Season 9, this time, I watched a tier list and someone put the barbarian at F tier and nobody was even in the next two tiers. And then everybody else was at the top. So it's like, don't play barbarian. Now, whether or not that's true, I don't know. I haven't played a barbarian ever, actually. But it is interesting that we would see that they would get crushed so harshly. And with the Spiritborn, I guess that at some point they were pretty low on the tier list. Now they're at the top. They're the only S tier, according to this one person that I saw. And that's kind of fascinating because here we have quite a few classes available, but they aren't as balanced as I think Blizzard would like. Obviously, if they were balanced, then we wouldn't have this tier list. They'd all be basically B tier, and none of them would shine greater than the others. But with so many powers and so many abilities and affixes and just combinations with unique gear and all kinds of stuff, I think it probably is part near impossible to predict what some maniac who is just a god of theory crafting is going to come up with and make it hard for the company to basically stop someone from finding a really crazy exploit. One of the things that I remember being crazy was that gravitational power for the sorceress, that you basically got the lightning orbs and they just hovered around you. I remember I was playing a rogue in that season and I watched somebody just melt a boss instantly with that, and I just stopped playing my rogue and tried that with a sorcerer. And when I got to the point that I had all of the stuff necessary to pull that off, it was absurd. I mean, it was by far and away the easiest climb through the ranks that I had ever done in the game. And occasionally that stuff's going to get through. Kindly, they didn't nerf it, at least as far as I know. I don't remember if they nerfed it before the end of the season. I don't think they did. They just made sure that it wasn't as good for the next one. So anyway, it's just very strange living in this time where we play some live service games and watching content you did pay for change dramatically to the point where maybe you don't want to play that aspect anymore. With Diablo 4 in particular, I always thought it was interesting because they introduced seasons so quickly. Back with Diablo 3, you just had the Eternal Realm for pretty much ever. And then when interest started to wane, they introduced seasons. I mean, we played it for a long time before that happened. And then they came out and I was like, that sounds kind of cool. Jumped on that bandwagon and ended up doing quite a few of the seasons before it burned me out. But with Diablo 4, you barely got to play the game before there was a season. I mean, I narrowly finished the campaign, and a friend of mine had to finish the campaign after season 1 started. So, on one hand, that was probably kind of smart. Get it out early, start people in the cycle of knowing that every 2 to 3 months they're going to be starting a new character, and really focus on that. But on the other, I don't really think we got to really fully appreciate the game, because in some cases, you get to a certain point, maybe you finish the campaign, and you're like, I'm not going to press on through to try and get top level in this when I know that in like 3 weeks, there's not really much point. I'm going to be making a brand new character, and nothing of that character transfers on. Now, from what I understand, with Path of Exiles 2, the sort of seasonal thing is a lot different. There's some kind of tradable currency you get in between. I'm not entirely familiar with it. If you do know and you could explain it, I'd love to see a comment. Let me know. But it sounds like they actually do it a little better than Diablo 4. Like there's more of an incentive to go through that process each time. Whereas with Diablo 4, it's like, just play. Just do what you're doing and have fun. In a way, the incremental changes and stuff, they can be pretty frustrating from time to time. And they can also be really cool. Like a good example is some of the seasons have pretty neat mechanics that they add to the game, like this one where you've got the power that you add to the bar so that whatever power you happen to engage, you can choose, and it will kick off the Herodric power. Whether it's, in my case, this disintegration beam that like explodes from a certain point and you can run around and drag it over people and basically annihilate them, or even back to when you got all the cool vampire powers where you could turn into a swarm of bats or whatever else. I thought those were really neat. And then of those, some of them actually transcend into the next season by becoming an affix or whatever, some way for you to be able to continue to use some of those cool things. And I thought that was kind of neat. On the other hand, there are things that were really fun or helped you level that are no longer there. Like there was that Whispers season where you would go out and there was just tons of ways to elevate the Whispers bar until you finished it. I will say that the first 10 times it was fun, and then it did become pretty old. And it was actually very hard to get the points necessary to fill up the seasonal bingo card, for lack of a better term. And so that became kind of frustrating. But at the beginning, it was neat. And there's not really a version of that in this season where you could just go out and get through all the Whispers as quickly as possible, which, maybe that's good, maybe that's not. I will say that when I leveled up my sorceress in this particular season, I didn't actually do many Whispers unless they just happened to be there. A couple of times I did the Helltide and got it all the way to max. And it's happened more now that I'm in Torment. But the actual leveling process, 1 to 50, normally I would have done them several times. But this time I was doing the Nightmare Dungeons so that I could finish the seasonal quest line. So very interesting, because this means that with the Live Pass in this case, it did change the way I played the game as well. Another thing they did was with the Battle Pass. It used to be like the Destiny 2 one, where it's just this long-ass line that you had to go from like level 1 to 100. If you paid for the premium, then you got whatever was on, let's say the top row, and free stuff was on the bottom row. There was more stuff in the premium, of course, and some of it was really cool. So you'd buy it, and then you just level up. Now, I know that Call of Duty has something similar to this, where you've got all of these different rows that you can pick from, and then you buy what you want. So Diablo pretty much took that. You've got reliquaries, and you can basically decide, do you want to buy weapon skins? Do you want to buy armor skins, beasts, or whatever? And then when you buy them all, then you get a set of armor. What I think they did that was a little bit silly is you could buy the deluxe edition, which gave you the cool armor from buying every reliquary right off the bat, which begs the question at that point, what's the point of the Battle Pass? Like, I guess if you were just gagging for some of the stuff in there, but they're all a little bit specific. And in some cases, they won't even work for every class. So it's like, maybe don't give away the pinnacle part of each reliquary. Maybe give away something else besides just a goat. Now, no disparaging that goat. He's freaking awesome. I love him. But it just seemed odd. And a lot of them do a premium version of the Battle Pass, whether it's skip 20 tiers or whatever the case, they offer something. I don't know how I feel about Battle Passes. I know I hear a lot of people disparage them, and they exist in so many different titles, not just the Activision stuff, but plenty of things. Red Dead Redemption 2 had it for their online. Anyway, I know there's tons. I'm not going to even try and come up with all of them, but Battle Passes do seem a little bit lazy, and it's actually even funnier when an early access game puts out a Battle Pass and you're like, wait a minute. Couldn't we technically get wiped because this is early access and you're supposed to be just still working on the game? But I guess that Helldivers 2 has a Battle Pass that people really like. I didn't personally get into the game too much, but I kind of saw what they were doing, and it looked a little bit like Reliquaries. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Drop a comment and say how it's different. As far as I know, Helldivers 2 did almost everything better than other live server games. If that's the case, and if you agree, please let me know as well. That'd be kind of cool. But anyway, I guess to sum up my thoughts on live service games, Diablo, Destiny, Helldivers, whatever, is that it's a very interesting model that we could lose content we initially paid for, gain stuff we never thought we'd get. Somehow we find ourselves having to balance a sense of nostalgia or entitlement to materials that we really enjoyed against the idea that this game we love is going to continue to be made and updated, and life will continue to be injected into it. Obviously, we have to find a way to appreciate that. We have to think of it a different way, because obviously, if you played games a long time ago, say Warcraft 2, they didn't do live service stuff. They came out with an expansion. It added like 10 levels or whatever, maybe a new race, maybe some new characters. And then it continued to do that. We still have that happening, and sometimes even with the live service games, such as Vessel of Hatred. But then it turns into this thing where they continue to churn out stuff in the live service model. So occasionally you've got this spike where you've got to spend a bunch more money, and then they release tons of stuff for it for a while. I mean, these have, in some cases, just gone on forever. I think Destiny's been doing it for over a decade now. It's kind of crazy. Warframe, that's another one. Long time. So anyway, what are your thoughts about live service games? Do you hate them? Do you love them? Recently, I did a video where I kind of talked about Inquisitor Martyr basically going on maintenance mode, and someone made a comment about how I had too much of a live service mindset, and I completely agreed with them. You know, I did. I was like, I'm sad that this doesn't have more, even though it is no longer a live service game in any way. They're not doing seasons anymore. You just pick which one you like and you just play it. But anyway, let me know what you think. This is Robert with Society Case Files signing off.